quite a collection of talent. For much of last year, Christina debated what she was going to do at the end of her stint. We made it even harder on her because we flirted with extending her stay. But at the end of the year, she packed up her desk and headed out. And today, she explains all of that and what she's been doing since on her blog. I particularly like this part. Why did I want to do something different? In part, because I wanted something that felt more tangible, but mostly because the story of the internet continues to be the story of our time. I'm pretty sure that if you truly want to follow, or better still, bend that story's arc, you should know how to write code. I admire Christina's willingness to leave a cushy job and take up the difficult task of teaching others to code and building something publicly. I'm sure it will turn out to have been a brilliant career move in time. Mark Andreessen says you either will be the person who tells the computer what to do, or the person that the computer tells what to do. I see more and more young folks internalizing that dichotomy and deciding to get technical. And I'm particularly happy about and proud of the choice that Christina made. Visit avc.com to read this post. Get fast, professional voices for any project at voicebunny.com.
Three messages before we get started. First, do you need a single phone number that comes with multiple extensions so anyone who works at your company can be reached no matter where they are? Go to grasshopper.com. It's the virtual phone system that entrepreneurs love. Next, does anyone you know need a beautiful online store that actually increases sales but is easy to set up and manage? Send them to shopify.com, the platform that top online stores are running on right now. Finally, do you need a lawyer who actually understands the startup world that you and I live in? Go to walkercorporatelaw.com. I've known Scott Edward Walker for years, so tell him you're a friend of mine and he'll take good care of you. Here's the program. Hey there, freedom fighters. My name is Andrew Warner. I'm the founder of Mixergy, home of the ambitious upstart, and the place where I interview entrepreneurs about how they built their businesses. They come here to tell you their stories, to fire you up, to inspire you, to give you a few ideas, and to set you off on a path that will hopefully lead to you being right here where you tell your story one day and inspire and help other people. And in this interview, I want to find out how a guy who listened to a self-help tape ended up building a multi-million-dollar company. When he was 19, Don Sinclair heard a tape that told him to write down how much money he wanted to earn. He wrote down a number that he thought was really high back then, $50,000. Well, it turns out it set him on the right path and it sensitized him to what he wanted out of life, and as a result, partially of that experience, today, Don is the founder and head of InCheck, which offers payment processing services, including credit card processing, remote check deposit, and collections. Don, welcome and thanks for sharing your story.
Thanks, Andrew. Great to be here.
How much revenue are you doing? I said multi-million-dollar company. Be a little more specific if you could.
We're in the seven figures. We haven't hit 8 yet. We're in the seven figures, so I'm pretty happy with that.
What do you mean you haven't hit it yet? You're doing over $1 million in sales a year, right?
Yeah, we haven't hit 8 figures yet.
Oh, you haven't hit 8 figures, and that's the next
one. We're in seven figures. We haven't hit 8 figures.
Okay. And you started off with how much?
$250.
$250. That's what you invested in this business.
That's all I had, man. I was in college. I was,
And partially the reason that you went off and started your company is, well, a friend of yours told you that you had the personality for sales. What did he mean by that?
Well, he had a company that was doing a check processing technology at the time. This is in the early 2000s, and they were looking for sales guys, and apparently he had a personality that he thought would work for sales. We were firefighter EMTs together. And so I said, sure, why not? I'll give it a shot. I don't know anything about sales or checks or business, but I'm living on, a few $100s a month, which is what I was making as a pay-per-call volunteer firefighter, so why not?
And before that, did you think that you were going to be an entrepreneur or get into business?
Well, I didn't think so. My dream was to be a doctor, but apparently there's a picture of me at 6 years old holding a briefcase. My grandfather was a CPA, my father was a CPA, so apparently there's this business bug gene in my family. But my dream from the time I was young was to be a doctor, hence the paramedic thing and so forth.
What was it about your personality that made you suited for sales?
I guess I was friendly and outgoing. I really don't know.
All right. Were there points in your life where you saw it come out? Because I remember for myself, I was a big nerd. But there were times when we talked business, or I would go work for a guy named Paul Cervera in Manhattan. I could actually make sales calls where I felt like I could see a glimpse of who I could be. Were there examples like that for you?
Oh yeah. I was really fortunate to have some really incredible mentors in my teen years. So I was looking up to them from a very young age. And I always had a thing for networking. I always wanted to meet people that were more successful, more accomplished than I was. I didn't become jealous. I became sort of envious in the sense that I wanted to know how they do what they do.
For example, who was it that made you say, how did he do it, instead of, damn him, why did he do it?
Well, I have one mentor in particular that encouraged me to start this company. He was my martial arts teacher, and this is a guy who had run an advertising agency, did really well with that, started a martial arts school, did really well with that, went on to become a bodyguard for royal families, did really well with that, and then went off to work with Microsoft and Bill Gates. So this is somebody who kind of just starts something, becomes the best in the world at what he does, and then does something else. And I kind of went, oh, that's cool. And he really turned me on to the idea of resourcefulness and networking. Being able to find the resources to do the things I wanted to do. But I remember he introduced me to an investment banker. And this was, at the time, somebody who I considered ultra wealthy. And I remember I was so afraid to meet this guy because I thought he'd come out in a suit, all put together. And he shows up in a big flannel shirt and jeans, and I kind of went, when you really reach the top and you're successful, because I was, like 20 years old, and I wore a suit everywhere because I was dealing with clients who were 2-3 times my age. I almost said 4, but that's getting a little there. But I was really intimidated. I mean, I was just this young kid, and so I always wanted to look put together. I always be in a suit and so forth. And I met this particular man, and I was like, wow, people who really make it don't have to do that. They can do whatever they want. And that was a paradigm changer for me. And then, of course, later on, because my industry, the financial industry, has been still pretty conservative. Later on, I went out west to our favorite city there, San Francisco, and realized that, people weren't people on the West Coast did things a little differently. But anyway, I think those two, that first mentor of mine, and then the investment banker he introduced me to, who was, he was talking about staggering numbers. I mean, he would say things like, you don't want to sell your company when it hits 25 million. You want to wait till it's worth 250 million. And I'm like, I have $250. That's
And that makes you feel, there's a bigger world of possibilities out there than I ever imagined. Something bigger to strive for.
Yeah, so it was a process of mind opening, through my 20s from kind of the mindset I grew up with, which is you work really hard and long, to the idea that all possibilities are endless, and it's what you're open to and what you draw to you that arrives.
Who was it whose tape you were listening to get yourself prepared to get into business?
So you reminded me of this story today because I forgot about it. I went to school in Ohio, and I was driving home late at night on Route 80 from Ohio back to Connecticut, listening to Brian Tracy sales tapes. I don't remember anything else that he said in this whole series of 12 tapes. They were cassettes at the time. Maybe they were CDs. I think they were cassettes. But anyway, he said, Brian, he's really enthusiastic, and he said, pick a number of what you want to make this year and write it down. And I did.
How long did it take you to get to that number?
See, I don't remember. It probably took me, probably the year after